invited him.
Okay, I just told him that he should check it out. He's in the other chat thing for our segment list.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Oh. You want to still host, Ian, even though we can't see you?
Yeah, sure. So are we waiting for Willie or are we going?
his,
Take go.
his voice is basically the moneymaker anyway.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Hold on, I don't even have the segment list open.
Are we doing the segment list, or are we just going to go to the championship game?
Oh, okay, yeah, I guess there is no segment list. Perfect. All
Championship game and pick 'em.
right. You should mute your TV, Rylan.
Oh, good point.
Okay, all right, here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Guys and Balls, your friendly Northwest sports podcast. My name is Ian.
I'm Dale.
And I am Rylan.
And we may be joined shortly by Willie, we're not sure. Obviously, this is a special off-the-cuff championship game wrap-up episode. We weren't able to do a full episode tonight because life happens, but we could not talk about the first national championship game of the playoff era that occurred last night. I know some of you are thinking, well, they're Beaver fans, so they're obviously just beside themselves and happy. And you know what? We're a little bit more than that. Just a little bit, though.
Extremely happy.
Most of us are we're all extremely happy. But we are going to talk about the game and try and be somewhat impartial about it. So let's jump right into it. In case you, I don't know, were in the hospital or had some sort of emergency last night and weren't able to watch the game, the Oregon Ducks took on the Ohio State Buckeyes and basically had done to them what they did to Florida State in the Rose Bowl. It was close to the first half and then just started to get a little out of hand. My main takeaway from the game was that Oregon just got beat. Like, they had some bad plays, didn't capitalize on the 4 turnovers that Ohio State gave them, but they just got outplayed. They didn't, especially on the defensive side of the ball, they did not have an answer for Ezekiel Johnson. What's his name?
Elliott.
Ezekiel, there you go. Ezekiel Elliott, Ohio State's running back. Ohio State's third-string quarterback, who size-wise is basically just another running back but can throw the ball. Also played well overall. So it ended up 42-20. Too bad for Oregon, but it was a well-played game by Ohio State.
Yeah, I think all in all, my takeaway is that I guess it comes down to the fact that Oregon couldn't stop their run in any dimension. They were basically they ran the same play over. Ohio State ran the same play over and over again, and Oregon just couldn't stop it. And there was some key third downs where Oregon could have got off the field, and they just didn't do that. And so I really think that it was just that was the biggest key in the game because the Oregon Duck defense got 4 turnovers, and so they had plenty of opportunities to possess the ball and score on that Ohio State defense, but they didn't take advantage like they should have. They didn't get that tempo offense going that they normally have. They had a lot of third down conversions that they didn't get that you normally would see them get. Maybe a couple of early key dropped passes, maybe kind of shook their confidence a little bit. I don't know. I think Mariota was just okay. I don't think he was special like we would expect him to be. And in the end, when you can't keep up, scoring wise, I mean, it's just hard to beat a top tier team, and I think that's what Ohio State did. I think Ohio State scored the amount of points I thought that they would score. I think that the Oregon offense significantly underperformed with what I don't think is great resistance from that Ohio State defense, maybe until late in the game. I think Ohio State's defense was there to be had. I just think Oregon didn't take advantage like they probably should have, and ultimately, it was 21-20 in the middle of the third quarter or late in the third quarter, so it wasn't like a blowout. But then when you don't take advantage and you have those 3 and outs, Ohio State's, I think, good enough to still score. So, what do? You lose basically because you can't stop the run game in the fourth quarter. That's how I see it.
I kind of disagree. I think Ohio State's defense actually played pretty well because you talk about those 3 and outs. Oregon had, I don't know the exact number, but it was more than they've had in any game all season, I feel like. And
right.
Ohio State just always seemed to have the right play dialed up to always hold them to, 3 or 4 yards, whether it was a run or a screen pass or whatever. They only gave up a couple, big downfield plays. They always seem to just kind of be in Oregon's offensive coordinator's pocket and know what he was going to do, and that's why they were able to force those 3 and outs. And Oregon's offense is such a rhythm offense, and it's a very up tempo, up rhythm, but they kept them out of it all game. They were not able to get into those. Ohio State's defense was never on their heels, and that's when Oregon is at their best, when it's just play after play and the defense can't keep up, and they never let themselves get stuck or sucked into that situation.
And that's what I was getting at, the fact that you're absolutely right. Oregon wasn't normally used to playing from behind, and Ohio State took advantage of that, and I think stepped up and late in the game to kind of seal it. And so you're right. Yes, they played better late in the game than they did early in the game. I thought Oregon gave it away early in the game.
Time of possession was a real key here in especially in the third quarter. They had that 6.5 minute drive right to the end of the third quarter to take the lead, 28-20. And then, right after that, Oregon gets the ball, and they had a key 3 and out where their defense just got off the field, didn't have that much time to catch up, and then Ohio State's offense is right back out there, and Oregon's defense is right back out there. I think that Oregon had a chance to win this game. I heard a lot of people say, yes, Ohio State on this day was the better team. I think that Oregon just caught a bad game, some bad drops. Obviously, the one by Stanford was a huge one on that third down that was about 40 yards downfield. Those were just momentum-killing drops. They needed those to basically keep the momentum going because, like we saw, Ohio State was definitely the better team on defense, and they were going to be able to keep up with them for the whole 4 quarters, especially even on the offense running with Ezekiel Elliott. And so they needed those early points, and not getting those key points early in the game really killed them late. And then only getting the 10 points off of the turnovers, that's you have to capitalize when the other team makes mistakes, and they didn't capitalize on those. I think one of them, they had a 3 and out. They obviously only got a field goal out of the other, and they didn't do. I think they had basically another botch series from the fourth one. So they on this day, unfortunately, Ohio State was just the better team.
Yeah, and Ohio State executed on offense really well. They got plenty of third down conversions where they're sitting at third and manageable. It was 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 1, things like that. But they converted those over and over and over again. And with the big quarterback, like F was talking about, that's a big deal when he can just, go between the tackles and get 1 yard running down a nose tackle, because he's as big as that guy is. And so, I just think that you're right. I think, I don't know, and I can't really speak to the distraction that getting 2 players suspended before the game had on the actual outcome of the game, but I really feel like that, just in my opinion, had something to do with, Oregon maybe not being as good as they normally are. And so I was a little surprised that Oregon offensively didn't come out after that first score and really continue to put that pressure on. I would assume that they would do that. So I just think Ohio State was more, if you want to say prepared, was more familiar with the situation, was more calm and relaxed. It just seemed like the way that they played the game, they were good to go, just ready to play. And I can't say that Oregon necessarily showed that in the game. And chalk it up to a bad game, I guess, but I don't know. It seemed like Ohio State was more prepared to beat the Ducks than vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that. I mean, Ohio State's defense, they were, just as fast as Oregon's offense was, at least on this day. And I don't know if they were more prepared, but I think just losing as many wide receivers as Oregon did over the season, and especially late there, they lost the guy on the opening kickoff
Right.
in the Rose Bowl game, and they lost the guy last week for smoking weed. And I think just the youth on the wide receiver core, it just showed their colors, and they just weren't ready. And I don't know if there were some missed routes or whatever, but it just seemed like they were being overpowered by the secondary. And I mean, much like the first Arizona game with Oregon, if you can put pressure on Mariota, he is going to stumble, and he did this time. Again, they hadn't seen a defense like that in a long time, and they hadn't seen a running back like Ezekiel Elliott like that, I don't think, all season, to be honest. So, I mean, you got this guy that was just a horse going behind, and Ohio State's offensive line was just blocking incredibly. So he had a hole on every single play. I mean, he averaged, 10 yards a carry? It was ridiculous.
Yeah, 33 carries for I don't know, 285 yards or something like that. But you're right. They're a more physical team. They're better up front, and they did what they needed to do to beat a Duck team. They, like you said, dominated time of possession. They played solid enough defense to held them, to 20 points, which is, I don't think they would have, anticipated that early before the game. They would have said, 20 points will be in heaven, But if you think about how Ohio State has played in the last 3 or 4 starts, they played really pretty good. They beat teams that are very highly ranked, very traditionally good, solid football teams, and they beat them handily. And so, that's the difference for me, is that, hey, they just had been on a roll. They kept the momentum, and they peaked basically at the most opportune time. And, like you said, Oregon didn't play their best game. So those things add up to them winning a national title. And it's funny because when they lost to Virginia Tech in the early in the season, everybody wrote them off, including myself, saying, yeah, it's going to be really hard for a Big Ten team to even get in and then ultimately win and compete on that level. So, part of this win says, how good is the Big Ten? Maybe they're a little better than we thought. I know Minnesota was played okay this year, and Iowa played okay, and, Michigan State was right there. And so there's these teams that, even Rutgers played, I think they're in the Big Ten. Anyway.
Yes, they are now.
Even they won a bowl game too. And so, you're thinking about all this happening. That it just shows you that maybe it's a little tougher in the Big Ten than we thought, and maybe not as good in the SEC and Pac-12 like we had thought. They maybe were better, conferences. But again, that's just kind of, I don't know, guessing.
Yeah, trying to see what the Big Ten's record was in the bowls. Let's see. Illinois lost. Rutgers won, so that's 1-1.
Michigan State won.
Penn State won.
Penn State won. Michigan State won.
Nebraska lost.
Yep.
Maryland lost. Wisconsin won. Michigan State won. Minnesota lost. And then Ohio State, Iowa, they got trampled. So, I mean...
That's 5-5 right there.
Well, yeah, it was... Oh, there you go. Hey, how's it going, buddy?
Oh, good.
Yeah, so that was 5-5. So, I mean, they had a bowl season. The Pac-12, they had a pretty good bowl season, but I'd have to see exactly who we went against. I know that Utah had a pretty cupcake one with Colorado State, but...
Yeah, so let's talk Marcus Mariota, who maybe didn't have the best game. Didn't have a bad game by any means either, just, got zero help from his defense. Had a couple critical drops from receivers. Just couldn't get the offense clicking. Still the Heisman Trophy winner. So do you guys think he enters the NFL draft? Do you think he comes back next year?
Hold on. I want to say one thing about Ohio State's defense regarding Marcus Mariota, I was very impressed by how well they were able to keep him in the corner. Usually we saw Oregon play, he'd hit that corner on the outside, and he was one of the fastest guys on the field, and he was streaked down for, 10, 15, 20, 30 yards. I don't think he got more than an 8-yard run the whole game, and was pretty much, kept to under 5 yards when he hit that outside turn. So I was really impressed with how Ohio State kept him within there.
Yeah, they spied him pretty good for the most part.
Yeah.
And I saw that. I saw them doing that on purpose. And, when you're down 2 receivers and, you're trying to throw the ball, I mean, he still was had 25 completions, 340 yards passing or something. He had a, decent game. That interception at the end doesn't really count, but, he played okay. He just, you're right. He didn't have that 90-yard run that he could usually get or whatever. So.
But, I mean, as far as going to the NFL, I don't think he has anything more to prove at the college level. I don't think he can even learn more. That's the big thing. You stay if you can learn more, if you can learn how to be a better quarterback. And I don't think that down at the college level he's going to learn how to be a better quarterback. He needs to go up to the NFL so that he can learn the game up there, so he can actually adapt his abilities as a quarterback to the NFL game instead of sticking it out one more year in the college football. So I think he should go.
And before the game, before the season even started, I think we all would thought, he's probably going to go. And when he wins the Heisman Trophy, you'd suggest, hey, you should probably go. But he's kind of left the door open himself in his press conference talking about, legacy and just getting better and all this stuff. And he never really was, convincing that he's like, I'm going, and he came back this year for, when he could have gone last year in the draft, probably number 1 or number 2 last year in the draft, and now he's going to come back, and he could come back again and, have a decent Duck team. They're going to play good and be there again. I just don't know how much it matters to him to win a championship, and if it matters a lot to him, then yeah, he's going to come back. But if it doesn't, then okay, no, he'll go to the draft. I think he should go because I think, Rylan, you're absolutely right. He's going to have a transition period anyway to get to be a good NFL quarterback, and he's not going to be able to do that in college, and he's not in the system that's going to allow him to do that. So I think that it'd be a smart move. You're going to be a top 3 pick. Financially it helps you. I just think all in all, he's ready to go, and he's going to be a sought-after, prospect in the NFL, and that's, all you can ask for coming out of college.
Do you think he's a top 10 draft pick?
Yes, I do. I think he's a top 3 draft pick.
Oh, goodness.
Tennessee or Tampa Bay are going to take him, and I think Tennessee's probably going to get him at number 2. I think Winston will go number 1, and I think number 2 will be him. So, yeah. And if he drops to number 3 or somebody trades around to get to number 3 or something, I could see that too. But,
Yeah.
It makes sense for him to go.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, Tampa and Tennessee are both scrambling for quarterbacks, and they'll clearly both take them 1 and 2.
Yeah.
All right. So real quick, so now our the inaugural season of the college football playoff system is in the books. What did you guys think of it? Do you like it? I'm assuming pretty much everybody seems to like it better than the BCS, but that's not hard to do. So what are your guys' thoughts on it?
Well, I think it, when we're at the BCS system, we'd always have this a lot more what ifs, like what if this team got a shot at it, or what if this team did, and blah blah blah. And if we had the BCS system as it was, we wouldn't have gotten the best 2 teams, I don't think, to play for the title. And so, because we had the 4 teams and because we had this process, I think that it lessens the what ifs a little bit and says, wow, these 2 teams had to play 2 really tough games to win a national title. And I think convincingly you can say that Ohio State earned its way to winning a national title this year. And I think that sets up well for the playoffs moving forward to say, wow, they really did probably get it right by getting Ohio State in there and then, letting them prove themselves to be champions or whatever. And so, the TCUs of the world could argue that, hey, wait a second, we could have been that team too, but maybe next year they'll get their chance. I don't know. We'll go from there. But I think that it's good and has been successful, even though we thought they botched it the latter parts of the regular season. So I don't know. I think it worked out in the end, and I think they're lucky for that.
Yeah, how crazy is that? How many people owe that committee apology after Ohio State goes in and beats Alabama and then Oregon, and everyone thought that they were crazy for putting them in there? I understand, TCU, as good as they were, they went into their bowl game and demolished their opponent. But I mean, you're absolutely right, Dale. Ohio State earned that championship. They earned that 4 spot. But yeah, it's pretty crazy to think that 1 week prior Ohio State was out of it and everyone was clamoring about wanting TCU or Baylor in there. So it's I think it's been a success. We always have that. What could have happened if that 3 or 4 got into that top 2. So now that we have this 4, I think it's good. We're still going to be wondering about that 5th, 6th, or maybe even that 7th team every year. But after seeing this and seeing how many games the kids go through, having to go through 15 games, if they have a championship game at least, I honestly am now against the 18 playoff. I think it's too many games for these kids. They're just not used to playing at that kind of level. And that length of a season. I like the 4 games. I think it adds a little bit of conversation when you're talking about who gets left out at the end of the season. But you still at least get that 4 teams, and you have teams going against each other to actually prove that they are a champion and they deserve to be in a championship. So I'm now against the 8, all for the 4.
We'll see how it works out, because there's going to be more clamoring about 8 games because of the money involved, that marketing and advertising, blah blah blah. Because oh my fucking god, this was kind of annoying how the week and a half running up to the game, the final game, was annoying, so annoying.
It broke the record for the highest rated something. I don't know. It broke some record today. It was 18. 3 million people watched it or something like that.
They wanted their Super Bowl of college football.
Right.
That's exactly what this system gives them. It's, a mini playoff that, builds up all this hype, and you have you have a number 2 seed beating a number 3, and then you have the 4 beating the 1, which is, the kind of story that you dream about if you're the the head of marketing or whatever for the NCAA, and and then the 2 play each other in this one game, and it's the Super Bowl of college football, and it's the national championship under the BCS system never really had that same air to it, just because it was all math and computers, and there's algorithms figuring this out, and it just doesn't have the same kind of build up and the same kind of human element to it that this playoff system does. And so I liked it. I thought it was great, and it's obviously giving the NCAA exactly what they want. You're right, Rylan. There's going to be a lot of people who want to go to an 8-team playoff because it means one more game, and so that's more hype to build up and more advertising space to sell and all that sort of stuff. It'll be interesting to see if it ends up happening, or if they let this 4-team system go for 3 or 4 years and see what happens. But yeah, overall, I think the system has done what they wanted it to, and has been successful overall.
Yeah, and it was popular. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is it's a popular thing. People want to keep up with it, throughout the latter part of the year, and that is what builds excitement. And when you build excitement, you get your Super Bowl. You kind of get there. And I think I found it funny. We were talking to a couple of guys that are Oregon fans, and I wonder how you guys feel about this, because if the Beavers go and let's say make it miraculously to a 4-team playoff, you know, and let's say they're the 4 seed like Ohio State, you know, your fans are going to travel. Which game do you travel for? You know, do you hope they get to the national title game so then you can say you got tickets to the title game and you were there? Or do you, you know, what if they lose that first semifinal game and then you didn't get tickets? I mean, are you an asshole then? I mean, where do we, you know, I find it hard to say, yeah, I'm just going to book 2 weekends in a row where I'm going to, you know, spend $3,000 or something to be around and support my team. And I just don't know if that's reasonable for the everyday fan.
No, it's definitely not. I mean, personally, for me, if the Beavers ever get into the 4-team playoff, I will absolutely go to that first playoff game. Mm-hmm. You know, just because that's what it is. You know, I have a friend who is a diehard Duck fan who I work with, who went to the Rose Bowl, and you know, she was bummed that she couldn't go to the national championship, but absolutely hands down was glad that she went to the Rose Bowl instead of, you know, waiting to see what happened. And yeah, you know, the national championship game would be even more exciting, but there's no way I'm going to miss out on the chance to see, you know, see them play the number 1 team in the country, or, you know, the 2 or 3, depending on where they fall. Yeah, so if I have to choose one game or the other, I'm absolutely going to go to the playoff game.
Yeah, and I think it has to do with the school too. I mean, you're asking us, fans of Oregon State Beavers who haven't even sniffed a championship game ever. So yes, I mean, the second that we are even possibly going to a championship game, you go to that first one and you sell your first child if we actually do win that and we get to the championship game so you can actually go to the next one. But yeah, I mean, you have to go to that first game because you don't know what's going to happen. But you know, there's other schools like Ohio State. I mean, they put out 50,000 new alumni every year, and so there's a lot more of a fan base to travel well to a championship. That, you know, Oregon and Oregon State, we've got 28,000 people or students in the school in total. So we don't have as much of a fan base. So to expect us to travel 2 weekends in a row is a lot to ask of a fan base. But if that happened to the Oregon State Beavers, I would certainly try to get to both. Basically, do whatever I can. I'll sleep on anybody's couch. I don't care.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Think about all the Bama fans.
Yeah.
You know, Alabama being a very successful football program over the last 10, 15 years, whatever. Think about all the Bama fans who were relatively sure that they were going to beat Ohio State, and so they just, you know, they set up to go to the national championship game, and then that backfired.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Hey, Rylan, you just said you're going to sell Alex to get to the game? I'm telling her that.
Well, I mean,
she'd understand.
I mean, there are 14 years for the Beavers to get to that game before I can sell her, because then she's 18 and I won't be able to do anything.
True.
Come on, Beavs, get there.
Do you hear that, new Oregon State coach? Get on it. All right. So have we covered the national championship game sufficiently?
I think we've exhausted it until next week when I can do my 2-minute drill.
Yeah, fair enough. So before we wrap up this mini episode, we're going to, of course, do our NFL picks. It was a big weekend, the divisional playoffs last weekend. Good games. New England beat Baltimore in a close game. Seattle beat Carolina in less of a close game. Green Bay beat Dallas, and surprise of the weekend probably, Indianapolis goes into Mile High Stadium and knocks Denver out of the playoffs. And then Denver knocks John Fox out of the head coaching position. Are we good?
What was that do?
We're good.
We're good about what?
Technical difficulties. The magic of the internet. All right, well, Dale, if you can hear us.
I'm here.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Are you there?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
I was trying to get information about our next segment, and then some stupid ESPN commercial came up. Sorry.
Okay, got it. So, of course, we are going to pick our division championships now. To recap the standings, this is kind of a big weekend. Actually, it was a big weekend for the standings. Willie has jumped into first place. He got 3 out of 4, locking down 12 points. Each divisional playoff game was worth 4. He only got Denver wrong. So he is in first now with 79. Dale, only a point behind with 78. He went 2-2. I have fallen farther back into third with 72, going 2-2. And then Rylan, the backfire of the weekend, he got one right. He guessed Seattle, but his lock of the week on Dallas being wrong cost him a point. So he actually ends up with 0 points on the week. So he is in fourth with 55. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, he's way out of it. But you're wrong, because the division championships are worth 8 points each. So there's definitely the option for him to or the possibility for him to come back. The Super Bowl, a ways off, is even worth 12 points. We'll get into crazy prop bets when the Super Bowl comes up. So it's still definitely anybody's game, trust me.
What's ridiculous there is that I had the distinct possibility of winning that Baltimore game and winning that Dallas game with the lock of the week.
It's true.
It was a pretty good weekend of football.
It's true. You almost got 10 points out of those games.
Yeah.
Instead, you got -4.
Hi, Willie.
Yo.
Oh, good timing.
Apparently, Willie's been hanging out in the other Google Hangout that I set up.
Willie was in the VIP room by himself.
No, I think I didn't have you added in my circle, and so it didn't even give me the option to join, and then I just clicked add, and it took me right here.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're just in time to do our NFL picks.
Oh, good, because I'm awesome at that.
You are, actually. We just recapped how you took the lead this weekend. So, seeing that you are now in the lead, our first game, Green Bay at Seattle. Willie, what's your choice?
Seattle, defending champs.
Just like that, huh?
Yep.
What's the line on this game? Does anybody know?
7.5.
7.5.
Okay. I mean, is anybody taking Green Bay?
Yep.
All right. There you go. That's what I like to hear. Dale, what do you got?
I can't pick against Seattle at home just because, Green Bay struggled to beat Dallas at home, and I know Dallas is good and beat Seattle in Seattle, but yeah, I just don't think. I think that defense is going to wreak havoc on Aaron Rodgers, who can't run right now, and that's going to be the difference. It's going to be Seattle.
Yeah, I'm also taking Seattle, mostly because of what Dale said. It'll be a bummer to see Aaron Rodgers get knocked out of the playoffs, but I don't think they're beating Seattle at home.
Now, just think about this. If Aaron Rodgers comes out and is just chucking it like he can, yeah, it'll be closer than I think, but I don't think he's going to be able to do that. So.
I don't think chucking it doesn't work against the Seattle defense. And Green Bay's, running game is not what it was earlier in the season.
But good like unbelievable good. He's done it before where he comes out and 6 touchdowns in the first half against Chicago, that kind of good,
Yeah, obviously.
It can happen.
Obviously, and that's what Ryland's banking on, apparently.
Yeah.
So the other game of the weekend, Indianapolis on the road at New England. I don't know. Dale, who you got?
See, the Patriots are 7-point favorites, and I think that that's probably accurate, but the Colts just have this weird thing where they come in and play really good defense, and then Andrew Luck carries them on offense, and then they win. And so I think that the Colts are up for a letdown after beating Denver, but not that big of a letdown. I'm going to take the Pats, but I'm not happy about it.
I like the way that Indianapolis is playing right now. I like the way that Andrew Luck is playing right now. I know they don't have much of a running game, Richardson was out last week, but you got Bam Heron is whatever they call him. Boom Heron. Fair enough.
Boom, bam, who cares?
Boom, bam, who cares? I know it's New England and they're playing at home, but sometimes they just have these letdown games. And I think after beating Denver in the playoffs last week, the torch has kind of been handed over to kind of the younger crew. Seattle won last year, and I think it's going to be Indianapolis this week, going against the Patriots. Lock of the week, Colts.
Way to try to talk it through as if you're making some coherent points about why you want Indianapolis to win when you're really just picking them because you're behind and you need to make up the points.
That is true. I do need to. However, no, I honestly watching that game last week, I just like what they're doing, and I think it's kind of a younger man's game right now. You do have some of these guys that kind of prove you wrong last year with Peyton Manning, but the guys are getting older, and I think it's just kind of time for kind of a new crop to come up, and I think Andrew Luck is right there.
But you're right. He was picking lock of the week Indy no matter what the matchups were. However, I am going to agree with him. I think that Andrew Luck is the hottest player in football right now. He has a bunch of misfits on his team, but I think that he is going to lead them to a championship. I don't believe in Brady. I think he's through. I don't know what the stats are on him winning playoff games in the past 5 years, but he gets there, but he can't lock it down. And so I'm gonna go Indianapolis. I'm gonna skip the lock of the week, leave that for Ryland so he could gain some points.
He's been in the AFC Championship 4 years in a row now, and he's been to the Super Bowl 2 of those years. Before that, he had been in the AFC Championship like 3 out of 5 years or something like that. So his track record of getting wins in the playoffs and getting there, if you would say, is pretty good.
Well, he's losing this weekend.
He's not losing.
I believe that Baltimore got way closer to beating New England than they should have.
Twice.
I think that New England believes that they're going to the Super Bowl, and that is going to bite them in the butt. And so I am going to lock of the week Indianapolis.
Wow. I'm the only one that's on the Patriot bandwagon.
Taking
front runner.
I'm representing the AFC East.
Well done.
That is amazing. I did not anticipate the lock of the week there.
So there is one thing about this game, and it is that the Pats went into Indy and ran all over them with that Gray guy, and now they're kind of get some retaliation here maybe. And so I think it's probably going to be a closer game than we think, but I'm still taking the Pats at home.
That was way, way earlier in the season. It is a whole new ball game now in the playoffs.
Fair enough. It is.
Any given Sunday. Willie, do you have any quick points that you want to add on the national championship or the college football playoff system?
Well, I didn't hear what you guys talked about already, so I don't know what I would be adding. But I think it was a win for the college football playoff system. I think it appeased the appetites of people who are like screaming for an 8-game playoff. I think that people are going to be satisfied with 4 for a while, even though this is a good example that some of those 5, 6, 7 teams could have maybe competed. But I think that it was highly successful. The week of build-up between the semifinals and the championship game was huge. And yeah, I mean, I just think it was a big success. And hey, what do you know? Oregon is terrible at football. And it's always good to end the season on the win. And I feel like OSU, Oregon State even, I feel like they ended the season on the win, even though they lost Civil War to Oregon. I feel like this just gives me a good, brighter outlook on life for the next 9 months.
Fair enough. I mean, anything to give you a brighter outlook on life. All right, so with that, I think that'll wrap up this special remote episode of Guys and Balls. We will be back in the studio next week. Rylan will have his 2-minute drill. Who knows what we'll talk about because college football's over. That kind of leaves the NFL and the NBA.
Yes.
College basketball, Ian.
Oh.
College basketball.
Right, I did forget about college basketball.
Go Beavers! We just beat the number 7 Arizona Wildcats at home.
Did we really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, you gotta turn on the TV sometime.
I gotta stop playing video games.
Yeah.
That's not gonna happen. All right, so yeah, have a good week, everybody, and we will talk to you next week. We'll be live at 7:30, funemploymentradio.com on Tuesday, or you can podcast us at guysandballs.com. Yeah, we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Word.